let us talk about the dietary law. Now, this subject has been the center of much debate between Christians and Hebrew roots members, despite being given the understanding that the kingdom is not a matter of eating and drinking. And before we get started, it's very important to note that the law came from the spiritual into the physical and has physical implications that will lead us back to the spiritual. God didn't intend to just give us carnal commandments that would teach us nothing spiritually. With this in mind, let us take a look at Leviticus chapter 11. In verse 3, God says that any animal that has divided hooves and that chews the cud is clean for consumption. What was God bringing to the attention of the children of Israel in a spiritual sense? The hoof being split symbolizes discernment. To discern means to separate, set apart, divide, distinguish. In the context of the hoof, to discern the path of right or wrong, good or evil. Chewing the cud symbolizes talking or thinking reflectively. Little by little, chewing and considering instruction until we are able to grasp the message. Not only did God want his people to reflect and meditate on his words, he also wanted them to be able to properly discern to follow the right path and renounce the wrong one. In contrast, unclean animals have solid hooves, implying that they make no choice in their footsteps between good and evil. Next, in Leviticus 11 verse 9, God says, "Whatever is in the water and has fins and scales, that we may eat." What was God bringing to the attention of the children of Israel here? Those without fins and scales are sucked down by the current, while those equipped with fins and scales are able to not only resist the current, but to swim upstream against the current. This shows us, again, a contrast between the righteous and the wicked. The righteous swim against the current of the world. The wicked are pulled wherever the currents take them. So those are a few examples of the spiritual implications of the dietary law. Jesus himself expounds on the spiritual implication of pigs when he says, "Do not give what is holy to the dogs, nor cast your pearls before swine." Now, a person that resembles swine in this sense is someone that doesn't think reflectively of what's being said to them. A person that doesn't consider any instruction. Now, speaking about Jesus actually gave us a dietary law. Listen to what Jesus says in John chapter 6. "Most assuredly, I say to you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in you. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life, and I will raise him up at the last day. For my flesh is food indeed, and my blood is drink indeed. He who eats my flesh and drinks my blood abides in me, and I in him." So we could abstain from every single unclean food that there is. The question is, are we consuming Jesus? In conclusion, the words of Christ are sovereign. He says in Matthew 15 verse 11, "Hear and understand. Not what goes into the mouth defiles a man, but what comes out of the mouth, this defiles a man." Imagine, there is still pushback despite Christ saying this and being crystal clear. What comes out of a man, this defiles him. All is spiritual uncleanness. These are the words from our King and High Priest. And we already know that when the priesthood is changed, so has the law. And every word that the king speaks is law. Many turn to preaching a health gospel by saying pork is unhealthy, while still eating highly processed foods and having little to say about the error of gluttony. Others say that God doesn't change, so the dietary law still stands. By that logic, Genesis 9 verse 3 should still be in effect. But enough of hearing what we shouldn't eat. It's about time that we tell each other what we should eat and encourage everyone to partake of the bread of life.